It's no exaggeration to say that our society was built upon the work of volunteers. Our scar, Kayla, Var, Nadina, as they say after all. And so in the 2022 census, CSO found that there were over 700,000 people in the state who were regularly giving their time and expertise for a voluntary cause. Like, that's incredible. And we can see that in every town and village, like it said here, and that we know that they keep our services alive. But we all know, and that this has been said too, that the work of volunteers do is that, for better or worse, I suppose, the state has been unwilling or unable maybe to do it at the time. And the resources that volunteering provides in terms of energy, personnel, finance and commitment would come at a very considerable cost to the state if it was to be sourced in the open market. And so I suppose the benefits, we know, we can see it, and we can all undoubtedly see, especially, you know, people have volunteered themselves, you can see that how much it contributes to society is well documented, but also how much we get ourselves from volunteering, and the physical and mental benefits that we get ourselves, and our career opportunities. And you know, and I suppose I just want to give a shout out to our own Carrigan Shannon, who won won Ireland's tidiest town, and Sligo won the cleanest town, you know, which are volunteer-led services. And ambassadors, like there's ambassadors, Sligo ambassadors to our volunteer group as well, which show people around the town. So it's services like that and arts festivals that keep us, keep our towns and villages alive. And I suppose I come from a community development background. I know yourself, Minister, also as well, and that's why it was so welcome to see in 2021 the government publish the first national volunteering strategy. And it's over the last 4 years been really welcome to have the whole of government policy recognising and promoting the value of volunteers in Irish society. But I'm delighted to hear that you said that the new strategy and that the commitment to a new strategy, and that you're looking forward to hearing more about that, you know, how more it's going to be rolled out. But we can't leave, I suppose, volunteer organisations waiting without clarity. And we know that the last volunteering strategy, well, it was great, but it wasn't perfect. And Volunteer Ireland have pointed to several issues that need to be addressed, which hopefully, I know that you've been listening to the feedback from Volunteer Ireland, which will hopefully be addressed in the coming strategy. And recruitment and retention, I suppose, for volunteer organisations remains an issue that often there is the same, people are relying on the same people a lot. And there is more organisations, I suppose, we're looking to support, incorporate maybe flexibility into their volunteer programmes. And that'll be looking at through supporting the PPNs, local development companies and the volunteer centres. But Volunteer Ireland at the time, they did make a point, based on their consultations, that most organisations and volunteer consulted never heard of a national volunteering strategy. And I know this has come up as well, that there was going to be a full communications plan as part of the strategy. So hopefully that will, you know, come along with this new strategy. But I just want to talk a bit about, and this is from my own experience as a volunteer, both in youth work, but also in Scouts. And it's looking, I suppose, at transport issues, and also looking at the complex, long Garda vetting processes, which can often deter a lot of people. And this particularly also comes from, we'll say, from an artist's point of view, or people that are new communities coming in, that trying to get Garda vetting, if you lived in a country or if you were even in a short stay for a short amount of time, particularly in art projects, you might be involved in one art project for one day and you have to go through the whole Garda vetting process if you're working with young people. So I think that's something, the whole Garda vetting process is having an impact on volunteers. And I know that that's something, I suppose, that's come up when I have been working both within arts organisations and with volunteer groups. And we saw that in 2022, the Immigrant Council of Ireland report that 63% of migrants wanted to volunteer, but they lacked information or culture, that, you know, there was cultural language kind of barriers. So that's something I hope will be looked at to this. And I just want to give a shout out to all the volunteers in my own community. I suppose of a family of Jesus, one boy, my middle boy. I'd be lost without him if it wasn't for sport. And, you know, just shout out for all the volunteers in GA groups, soccer, all of the sports groups that he's involved with. And I suppose I'm not on my own as a parent thinking, well, I say thank God for the GA. This is someone that wouldn't be the biggest fan in the world, but I am now, because I suppose I can see the benefits. As a parent, if you didn't have volunteer-led groups in your own community, you know, especially in rural Ireland, where the opportunities for other areas mightn't always be there. So I suppose before I finish up, I just want to talk about one sector, and this is the youth sector. I know this has come up before here as well, and like I'm a big believer in Mullinóig agus Chucky Shade, and I know that volunteers, one kind word to a young person can have lead someone on a completely different path throughout their life. And they are essential to sustaining youth work infrastructure. You know, like I know that and I worked as a project worker within target-led youth work, but it's the volunteers that provide a lot of the services that bring young people in that might end up going into targeted youth work. And you know, and I just from working or talking to NYCI that there needs to be further investment in looking at how to support the club development, because if they're not developed, you know, through I suppose through having professional staff that are supporting the youth club development, you're often then at a loss of increasing. You know, you might be losing that whole grassroots sector and its reach of diversity and meeting young people where they are. So I suppose that's why I would love to see, Minister, that there's going to be clear, adequate funding for staff, particularly that are dealing with volunteers within youth work services, because it's a big investment, and often it can be overlooked within youth services that it takes up a considerable amount of time. So, you know, looking at recruiting, about managing staff and supervising a staff. So I hope that this sector in particular will be looked at in this new strategy going forward. Thank you.